Welcome to another edition of Navigating Life with Coach Lowe. Today, I have an amazing friend of mine on with me. I have Mr. Reimel Gilliam from Chicago. He is a limb bloom eagle, very much so like myself. I know, a friend for over 30 years. This does not happen in real life a lot of the time, but here we are, Reimel, 30 years later. Wow. So today, Reimel is going to talk with us about the street life in and around the Chicagoland area, what his hand has been in it in the past, and then what he is doing now to make a change in the city streets of Chicago. So I look forward to hearing all that he has to say, and I hope that you are too. Reimel, please.
Hey, hello. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. Thank you for being my guest.
All right. Well, I bring greetings from Chicago, Illinois. My name is Reimel Gilliam. I am a father of 3 amazing children, 2 boys, 1 girl, 5 grandchildren. Yes. I'm a brother, I'm a son, and actually I'm just a guy who comes from the inner city of Chicago, who has an opportunity to work with children who well, not children, but young adults who come from the same kind of mindset that I come from, so to speak. You know, I think about, I'm a believer. I'm a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? And what I have realized about myself is that transformation is what has really defined me. I have always kind of fit in a box where, you know, what people thought of me, or even what I thought about myself, but I haven't until recently just thought about it. But I'm able to transform and constantly change. So I'm constantly changing for the better.
So awesome. That's awesome. So thank you so much for just sharing with our audience who you are. We will learn a little bit more about your story as we move on. But I just wanted to, when we talked previously, you talked about a pivotal moment in your life. You talked about a number of things. You talked about the process of getting to the age of 12 years old. So your parents were teenage parents. Then,
yeah, like most inner city kids, you know, we born to teenage parents, and like any parent, I had a great childhood. Loving mom, still have a loving mom. Loving father to the best of what he knew love to be. And I believe that I have loving grandparents. You know, I had a loving, everybody loved me. I did. And I think that's what you were pointing out was the pivotal point, was like, I believe 6th grade, 11, 12 years old. My parents and the family structure of my immediate home had broken down. And my father had succumbed to drug use and street life. And he was my hero, you know? And like every child that looks up to their father, if they have the privilege of knowing their father, he's a hero. And I guess when he had failed off in the structure of my home, my mom praying and working hard, I didn't value those things at that point. I didn't value the sacrifices that she was making, because my immediate world was shattered. So at that point, I tend to, I guess you look for love in any situation,
Wherever you
so
can get it.
wherever you can get it. And with that came peers acceptance became more
Prevalent.
prevalent. Home structure. I can go home and wash the dishes and do homework and put on that front, but I wanted to be loved, and we were operating, I guess, when I think about it, everybody was going through trauma at that time with the breakdown of the family, and we were trying to act like everything was all right. The adults was, but I knew everything wasn't all right. But when I'm home, I was expected to act like everything was okay. But it was trauma there. And I searched for that love elsewhere that I wasn't receiving from my immediate home. And I was able to get a family of my peers and actually people older than me as well exhibited that love. And throughout life and growing from a 12-year-old kid and being in that extended street family is what I call it. We tend to be able to differentiate through time what real love is and what fake love is. And if you're privileged to survive that period, you will be able to differentiate. And God blessed me with the opportunity to have that time to differentiate. And it it wasn't an overnight thing, because these people you look at like brothers and really family, because the way that they know what you're looking for at that in the streets. They have it for you, whatever you look, come on, yeah, come on, we got it. And it was a point where I just got stagnated for so long because this is what I thought my life was just gonna be with that street family. And I, my mother, through prayer or whatever, she was able to distinguish when I had changed into the street person. And it had conflicted with every rule and things that she was trying to raise me to be, in that loving environment. She noticed that change. And, like loving mothers do, she snooped in my stuff and found all kind of stuff that she was not supposed to find.
Yeah.
And those street activities led me to the door. She, I remember like vividly her telling me that she had a dream, or God came to her in a dream and told her that I had came to the end of the road at her house. He into some stuff that you don't want to have no business in. And I was like, "Mom, are you serious? God told you that?" She was like, "Baby, it's time for you to go."
So Reimel, how old were you when this took place?
About 15, about 15 years old. And yeah, I was 15, but you got to think I was running with guys that was 18 to 21, and it just didn't mix for my mother, who was my mother. She could, I was able to fool certain people, but I couldn't fool mom.
Right.
She'd be like, "Hey, wait a minute. Let, empty your pockets." I had one of those mothers who came from, my mother grew up in the inner city as well. So she was able to distinguish when the change came about even more so than I could as a child going through the change.
You
And
talked about her, excuse me, you talked about her being the authority in your life that
yes,
could not be breached. I love
oh, yes,
that because there was somebody that was willing to stand against anything to fight for
yes,
her baby, and that I just, as a mother,
hmm,
I heard that so loud and clear. And you also talked about, because there was more to you in your journey than the street life. You were an educated man, and you still are very much so. School came very easy for you, like you said, but because of all of the background noise on the home front, it gave you an opportunity to be away from your parents, but to act out of your pain.
oh
Help
yeah.
us understand.
Well, I believe my mom, through prayer and the strength of the ancestors, she was able to uh, ride me like a bear. You know, she would know where. I remember like as a kid, her telling me, "Don't go on Eggleston." So my thing, when I started going on Eggleston, every car that come around the corner could possibly be my mother. So, I had everybody on alert looking for my mom, just like we was looking for the police and opposition. So my mom was, fearless, prayerful. I just thank God for her, even to this day, for her fortitude. And I mean, at 15 years old, just the stuff that she had to go through. Now I still had a little sister that she had to raise, but my mother, I don't know if even going to school, my mom would come up to the school and, no, I just had a feeling that you was not here. I'd be like, what you mean? So my mom, even to this day, I thank God for her because she was able to just keep on me even when she put me out. She still would come and look, you know what I'm saying? So even though I wasn't, she still had a presence that she was still, if I couldn't abide by her rules, it was just she was not going to be broken from the rules of a home, and she didn't allow me to bring guns in the house. And I would have to have stuff elsewhere, because that was, at that point, people used to say this is Jesus' house, or you know and that's what it was not gonna be compromised in any way. And I thank God that she didn't allow me to, manipulate her into because most mothers with their sons are very
Accepting and forgiving, just
and
open. Yeah,
I
in
be,
a way that's unhealthy. But your mom
oh
was
yes,
your greatest accountability partner, is what I hear you saying.
oh yeah, yeah, for just as far as my progression, even to this day, I have to attribute a lot of it to her and her unconventional way of loving me, because she knew who I was, even though I could give a perception to the world. I mean, I was going to church with her, singing in the choir on Sunday, and street activity Monday through Saturday, and serious, and be in the choir. I would be like, Mom, where we going to sing? Where the church at? Because I know I would be doing things everywhere. My terror didn't have a secluded place where we did terror. We went everywhere. And for her, and my mother was a teacher as well. That's why a lot of the education came, you know, the saying that the learning starts at home. That's so true because, you know, my mom had me doing all type of educational exercises. I'd be like, the teacher don't want book reports. Why do you want book reports? You know, so yeah, I thank her. Yes, yes. So
That's so awesome. I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. I want to rewind
mhm.
because there were some things that happened that we didn't mention. We just kind of jumped in and started talking. But I want you to just kind of talk about the emotional challenges that kind of led you down this lane to gang activity, street activity, and the like, all of the lifestyle that came with it after the divorce of your parents. So when you talked about that home, that foundational breakdown, that is what you were speaking to. But I wanted to bring some clarity for the listener that needs to understand a little bit better that there were some things that happened that that affected you in a negative way, and it caused you to look for the things that you should have gotten on the home front. You looked for it from your street family.
Yeah, like exactly, Lo. My once my father and my mother's marriage kind of went for worse, uh, that created a, a spirit in me where I had to transfer that hurt and pain. Um, you know, there wasn't anybody talking to me, or you know, even when they talked to me about it, how do you feel? Oh, I'm okay. You know, I'm cool. You know, but that was just on the surface. You know, so the 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 activity and things that I did in the streets were actually praised and highlighted. You know, they love for me to act crazy at the park, you know, wherever, at the party, stop the party. This was something, and then it became so expected of me that this was just something that I automatically did, you know, without any thinking, you know, and it's just comes from a place where you don't have that platform to talk to anyone about what's going on, you know, and not feeling comfortable to talk to anyone. Because I do remember my mother, you know, trying to get me to talk to people, and I'd be like, "Oh wow," and they'd be looking at her like, "He's fine. What do you?" And she'd be like, "Boy, how do you fool these people?"
Right.
The next time I can, you know, because she would come in my room and go in the walls and see all kind of things that, you know, I didn't show the world. You know what I'm saying? Until it was time. My street family knew it, but my mom, you know, nothing like, I'm serious. I mean, the more that I talk about it, she was really influential in all of that because the streets, they praise the you know,
The nonsense.
they praised it, and that was a feeling that I love. I mean, I wasn't getting praise at home, so I'm gonna get the praise, you know.
One way or the other, right?
All right. Yes, and that's exactly where we at. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to talk to you about the rage that you talked about. You said that there was a spirit of rage that was so great in you. And I think that that was what you were just speaking to when you talked about you had to get that off of you, the pain that you were feeling. So
Yeah.
these things that people would see manifest in the street life, this came from a real place within. You just didn't express it. You didn't want to talk to anybody and get the necessary help that you needed. You wanted to inflict that kind of pain on what you would call the opposition in the streets of Chicago.
And just to be honest, though, you know, the gang culture is just as prevalent in schools as ABCs and one, two, threes. You know, I mean, when we're young, you can recall. I mean, I recall not officially getting in a gang until like sixth grade, but I was fascinated from the inception.
Yeah.
You know, they would come up around the school. You'll be like, "Who? Wait a minute. Why don't nobody say nothing to them? You know what I'm saying? Why everybody don't say nothing when they come to the park? You know what I'm saying? Who is these guys?" So, you know, and I actually had befriended a guy who was older than me, and you know, with me being with him, it was almost a form of protection. So even though my dad was on drugs, then nobody mess with Big Joey. He crazy.
Right.
So why wouldn't I emulate crazy Joey since that's who I'm with all the time?
Right.
And you know, so but it was just a balance, and Joey didn't have a problem. You know, he didn't have a problem, or if it was a problem, he handled it right there. And that's kind of how I learned to navigate without a father figure.
Yeah.
He wasn't a father figure, but he was a big brother who would come up to the school to get me. You know, he come to pick me up every day around the opposition, and didn't nobody say nothing to Joey. You know, so I'd be like, oh yeah, it was no question. I would be like Joey. You know,
Right.
it was it was not a second thought in my mind, because I could go to the park with Joey. We went to the store. Didn't nobody take my body. You know, it was stuff happening to people everywhere. So that protection of Joey was something that resonated with me. And once he let me know that he was a, a Black Stone, I had to be one. My daddy was a Black Stone and Joey a Black Stone. Oh, it was a done deal. At 12 years old.
Well,
I
that's interesting to make that kind of a life decision at the age of 12.
yeah, yeah. You know, at that point, you know, I was playing baseball. I was doing all of the other things that kids do. But unfortunately, in Chicago, the gang lifestyle at that time was just so prevalent. I mean, even if you were not in a gang, you had a preference of which gang did you prefer, because maybe if it was cousins or uncles or neighborhood, you preferred one gang to the other, and that was just uh, a staple in Chicago public schools, because actually that's where I think the first interaction with gangs was that Chicago public schools.
Wow.
That's where you see the activity at, you know?
Yeah.
So in the parks and things like that. So you know, it's just a choice that was made, you know, unfortunately at 12 years, and you make those choices out of peer pressure, but you know, it becomes a lifestyle, and it becomes a real lifestyle, especially when the tragedies that come along with it, when you start losing friends and losing brothers and sisters, you know. So it's you know, it's just it's not normal. You
Yeah.
know, it's not normal at all.
So these, all of these things, so let's call it what it is, because you talked about losing friends and your peers.
Mhm.
Usually you're losing them to either death,
Yeah,
or you're losing them to incarceration.
yeah.
Either way, you're losing people along the way. How
Oh,
much of that had to do with you choosing to transform at some point and wanting to take a stand against rather than standing for and with the nonsense?
Lolita, you may want to cut this part. I actually, it's unfortunate, but I didn't consciously just make that decision overnight. Like I said, these people are brothers and sisters that, and through the death and the incarceration, there's even more of a bond and connection that's formed, because of the loss. And, you know, I didn't make the choice to just consciously, I just started making a change, I'll say. The change came about, uh, it's just a gradual change, Lolita, because even though I don't uh, participate in the activities, I still connect with the participants in
Yeah,
the activity in hopes and of changing and redirecting the lives, and it's just a privilege that God has allowed me the opportunity to try to help my brothers and sisters stop the senseless gun violence, because at that time when I chose, we kind of chose the lifestyle that we wanted to participate in.
yeah,
And now I see, and in my job, I'm constantly at innocent people's funerals,
yeah.
innocent kids, innocent like babies that didn't choose that life,
Right.
you know. So that's it's like heartbreaking to me that to know that I made a choice for this nonsense, but God still gave me an opportunity to survive. To now, I've turned 360 degrees. I mean, yeah, I'm a, when they call me by my street name, I'm still, I still answer to it, but that's not who I am anymore. You know what I'm saying? But it still allows me that gateway to reach those unreachable people. And I've had some success stories. I'm thank God, for some success, even through the tragedies that I had. Those ones that really changed, that could be out here causing havoc. It's worth it. So every day is just rewarding, being able to reach the unreachable. Because they know me from, or they may have heard of me by now, because I'm old, but at the same time, I've still stayed relevant for so long. And I've had good job, God has always blessed me to work, but I still have a connection with my family.
Hmm.
It's like a tribe. Wherever we go, we still connected. We have the same blood. But the challenge now is to get these younger brothers and sisters to see that we all in the same tribe.
Yeah.
And with the tragedies of losing loved ones at an alarming rate, you know, I don't want to feel like the job is over, that we just got a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
as a people. And I just think I'm thankful to have this opportunity to be actually getting paid to do something that I would do for free.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I owe it to them for
Yeah.
everything that I've done, and for the brothers that I get letters from or phone calls from that's locked up that won't be home, and they hear about the work that I'm doing. It's it's satisfying, even though the pay is not the best. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? But it's satisfying when I go on the blocks that I used to terrorize, and we able to have picnics or give away Thanksgiving food or things like that of that nature. So it's very rewarding at that point. So yeah, I'm thankful, though. I'm
Okay.
thankful.
So that's wonderful. So let's talk about the pivot that took place. So you said you were around age 28 and
Mhm.
you were working in the Chicago public school system. And you had never been formally addressed before, except for in a courtroom by a judge. But this
Yeah.
day, a student approached you by Mr. Gilliam, and that did something for you on the inside. Tell us about that.
Well, Lo, I've always, thought of myself and carried myself as a man or a stand up type of guy, and I've always worked jobs. I've always had a job. My grandmother wouldn't have it no other way. So at this point, I had I had just actually transitioned from a job working at a place like a Audi home type of place in Chicago, and I had just got a transform trans went to be a teacher, went to work for CPS, and the young guy called me Mr. Gilliam. And I was already, they had introduced me as Mr. Gilliam to the classroom. I'm a teacher assistant, and I heard the Mr. Gilliam. I'm like, okay, But once one of the youngsters came to me and they was like, Mr. Gilliam, can you just to hear that uh transformation, for to be addressed as Mr. Gilliam in an admiration type of a way
Yeah.
was where it really began. That's when I really start feeling like, wait a minute, I got to start changing my clothes when I come to work. It was like that, because other than that, I was cool being Ray, the Mo, whatever else you could call me anything. But when they call me Mr. Gilliam, I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds good.
Somebody.
I am somebody. Yes, yes. And I think it was really more so not from my coworkers, but from the young man that I was assisting, for him to address me as Mr. Gilliam. I got it, at this time, a lot of times male teachers are not real prevalent in Chicago public schools. And he was a guy that was deemed like the worst. You know what I'm saying? They was telling me he needed a one-on-one, but at that time, when I came in the room, I just was, approachable.
Hmm.
And for him to come and address me as Mr. Gilliam, you think you can, I'm like, wait a minute, this is something that I'm going more interested in. I still would go to the block after work, but I didn't miss days of work. Nah,
Right.
nah. It was something bigger than me. That's when it realized that I could I could really do something more positive, and I like to be looked at in a positive light.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that positivity. So we've talked about how you've grown up in your personal life. We've talked about the things that affected your decisions in the mid part of your journey, but now we're transitioning into the positive side of how God used where you had been to take you where you're going, to understand and be able to connect and be relevant with the shooters in Chicago. So tell us a little bit about what CRED is and what it is that you do for this particular organization in Chicago.
Okay. Just a brief thing. Chicago CRED really works with the population of young adults who are more likely to shoot somebody or to be shot. But in hindsight, we actually just work with, uh, I guess they would call them the at-risk youth,
Mm-hmm.
so, and it's not so much as even the youth, they're young adults, it's not an age limit with the gun violence that goes on. So, CRED takes a multifaceted approach to gun violence. We have an outreach component that goes out and well, let me give you a whole rundown of it. Outreach goes out and they actually are targeting the groups where the violence is like outrageous. So we're in Roseland and we're in North Austin. So the outreach workers go out and they go on the blocks and they establish a relationship with the guys by finding out if the guys have any educational needs. There's a lot of guys that don't have the high school diploma. So CRED offers educational components and all kind of resources. So when outreach engages the guys, they have to come in and talk to clinicians for like, I believe, 4, 5 different clinic sessions with our clinicians for over a period of 3 months that they go through outreach. And they're paid a stipend during this point where they work on all kind of just self awareness and trauma and just being able to self-regulate in all type of situations and conflicts. So then after they successfully complete outreach, they moved into a component that's called programming that's a little bit more strenuous of a schedule. So here they're teamed up with life coaches and we have different vendors that come out. Maybe I can introduce you as a vendor as well to come out and just do some empowering techniques with just again self-regulation, because that's a big component of being successful. Is just because you're gonna have a little adversity, but being able to self-regulate through those adversities can help a long way. So, and then I work at like tightly with the employment and training process. This is where young men who have successfully made it through programming, they go into a training where they get training for soft skills and hard skills for another 6 months with us. And then on completion of this process, we help them to attain employment with some of the partners throughout Chicagoland who have actually come in and want to give our guys and our young ladies an opportunity to change and be productive citizens. So I work with a great organization as far as, reaching out to have a wraparound service. And even when the young men go from outreach to programming to employment and training, they still have access to all those resources that were in play prior to moving on to the different stages.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they need, I mean, they may need housing. We have so many different resources. I have to email you the list, but we have a lot of different resources for our participants.
I love it. I love it. It is so amazing how one could go through some things in life to uh to to transition through that process so
Yes.
that you are prepared to meet someone else where they are, because these are guys with a certain mindset. They're not standing for righteousness. Just like you were not in that space at one time, you
Yeah.
are someone who clearly understands where these people are. I
Oh
I
yeah.
couldn't I don't feel like I could directly understand it, but because we come from the same place, we come from the same streets of Chicago, we've been touched by a lot of the same circumstances. I understand from a level, but I was never a shooter. I was never a gangbanger. I was never any of those things, but I was very closely connected.
Oh yeah.
So those things inadvertently affected me. In our senior year, I lost my boyfriend to
Yeah.
a drug deal gone bad. And
Wow.
you were one of those people in my life at the raw age of 17 years old who stood with me.
Yeah.
I remember crying, and you and Brian Evans would be walking me to my class and stuff. I'd be like, y'all got to go to class.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
we were there for one another. And so I'm like, wow, look at what God is doing.
You know what, Lolita, just for you to just imagine, uh, that same trauma is happening, it's affecting everybody. And that's another thing about CRED. Whereas they have services for, like, if the young men that's in the program, they have services for the girlfriend as well, because the community, we all are affected inadvertently by gun violence. And it's it's a privilege, and it's just not normal for these things to occur at the rate that it's occurring here. But I believe that we are definitely on the right road to recovery, because a lot of young men, it's the same thing like I said earlier. It's that love, that's kind of what it all boils down to, you know what I'm saying? Because even, I'm sometimes I come into rooms and I look at the guys, I have to look back like, wait a minute, he looks like he didn't, did he break out of jail? You know what I'm saying? That's the look some of them have at the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
But once the relationship is formed, and
Mm-hmm.
we do those soft handoffs from outreach to programming, from programming to employment and training, we become a family. So we kind of redirect the street activity and show these guys that it's another world.
Yeah.
We believe in you. We gonna get you where you need to be. What do you want to do? What is it gonna take for me to help you be the best that you can be? So with that, and not just being an organization that talks about it,
Yeah.
but we actually do come through. It's very that's where the impact is made, because they done heard all kind of things their whole life. You know what I'm saying? So for them to be making these strides and having that support system around them, it makes them want to be good people. So, you know, I do understand that, looking at things, looking at people as monsters, because I was looked at as a monster at one point in time, But like I said before, when I go back on the block that I caused a lot of terror on, and they see that we really are trying to clean up the community,
Right.
not just the block, but we really actively want to change lives and redirect people. So
Mhm.
that that acknowledgement from the elders, whereas they used to look like, what is you back over here for? You know? So it's a good thing now that they don't call me Mr. Gilliam. They still call me by my name, but the conversations have changed so much, whereas that transformation it feels great.
That is so awesome. I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. What I do know is that you have also you work with a number of other Eagles. So
Yeah.
Curtis, there's Curtis, and then there's Nicole. And
Yeah.
Nicole is a clinician. I don't know what Kurt does, but I am so very proud of the impact that you guys are making on the city streets of Chicago for good. For our youth,
Oh,
for our young adults, it's going to, back to what you were saying, the collateral damage doesn't have to be as extensive as it is. And
yeah.
so it gives us an opportunity to kind of bring down some of the noise so that families can begin to foster and produce productive citizens.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. I'm surrounded by so much creativity with these young men who have failed in a number of traditional settings, but when they have that support to and that per that support and love encompasses I mean it kind of ensures their success,
Yeah.
to a point, because that relationship hasn't been formed with any type of direction. They actually raise each other, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where the fall off comes from. A sheepish kind of feel where they just kind of follow what the friend is doing. But when individually engaged and introduced to things, I have, like, I'm proud to say I have one of my participants has actually motivated me to go back to college,
Beautiful.
because this is something that he wanted to do, and we actively did it together, so it's something that I wanted to have for myself, and it's going to help me professionally. And it actually gave him just that boost, that having somebody to do it with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of it's rewarding, even with small steps, though, because I have one guy who just really stopped. He hasn't been to jail in the last year, and that's a big step for him.
Yeah.
Where we was bonding this guy out constantly, you know what I'm saying? So it's just to know that everybody is unique, and dealing with each guy individually and having so many different, because like I said, I don't do it by myself. I'm just a small component to the work that's being done. And you know, everybody, we come together. I'm in Zoom meetings with teams after teams after teams, and it's for different, unique, just for different people, individual guys. So we are, I know we're making the change necessary, and I just love to see guys reach goals and keep setting goals, and that's the rewarding part of it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to give you guys a hand clap. And
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to you for being my guest on today.
Thank you for having me.
you are more than welcome. I gotta have you on again, or a part, somebody from your group or something. We've got to do this again. So it is so amazing. Thank you for sharing your personal story, and thank you for sharing with us how you've transitioned to impact lives for the greater good of the Chicagoland area. Thank you so much, Reimel, for coming on.
Thank you, sister.
All right, sweetie. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You too.